All right, we'll go ahead and kick things off for the morning. It was an exciting night across Tennessee and a really good election night for some. And I think there's a great General Assembly that we'll have the opportunity to work with, and we've got a new U.S. Expecting a new U.S. Senator. And we've got some shape around what's going to happen in the general election next month, or in November, excuse me. Kind of want to go through what our agenda looks like today. We have a couple of really special guests, and we're lucky to have some winners from last night over in the House. A big winner from over in West Tennessee, District 76, Tandy Darby is going to join us very early on our call. And then State Senator Paul Rose is going to join us toward the end of our call. He had a big win down in Tipton County in his district last night. And we're going to just walk through what happened in some House races and what happened in the Senate races also. So we hope that you'll get some value out of what we talk about here today. And at the very end of our call, we're going to dive into what happened with Bill Hagerty's big win for U.S. Senate, and Diana Harshbarger's victory up in the District 1 congressional seat up in Northeast Tennessee. So we're looking forward to diving into those things for you this morning. Hopefully we will get you out within the hour. So let's get right into it. Tandy Darby, I think I saw you on. Tandy, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Tandy. I'm Ryan King with the Tennessee Chamber. Congrats on the win last night.
Thanks, gang. Hey, it was a very humbling experience, and I'm not a seasoned veteran yet. These are new shoes to fill, but a very humbling night.
Hey, so you are the first Republican to defend another Republican in that district really since Reconstruction. Andy flipped that seat for the Republicans. What's that been, Tandy? 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, Andy's been there. Andy's been there 10 years.
Tell us kind of about how you're planning on continuing what he's worked on. I think you're involved in agriculture to a certain degree, and Andy's been obviously a big advocate for ag, and he's been on the ag committee also.
Yes, sir. Hey, we want to keep the torch burning. That's kind of the backbone of this area, agriculture and education. And Andy's done a great job, and just want to continue the movement.
So what was it? I think all of us have speculated, but here at the Tennessee Chamber, we're obviously not campaigning out on the trail. What's it like in the age of COVID to campaign, since you can't see many folks face to face?
You know, the rural area here, we don't get the highs and the lows, or we try not to get the highs. And we started off with lots of digital ads. Didn't know what the next day was going to bring. And we kind of used the slogan, we're just optimistic about tomorrow. I guess that's the best way to put it. And we kept pushing the envelope there and never got any harsh feedback from folks that we were meeting. And so we wanted to go door to door. We felt like this area, that was the best approach that we could do, and never once got ran out of anybody's yard or a door slammed in our face. Just some pretty good people over here in this area, and lots of resiliency, and just some pretty good folks.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. We've all read about you in trying to learn about the race. Obviously, it was an open seat, so we knew that the seat would change hands. But tell us about you and your family.
Yes, sir. 46, graduated 92, graduated valedictorian of Greenfield High School, and don't nobody snicker about that. That's it's a small school, but we got a great education system. And went to the Lambeth University. I signed for football and baseball. out of high school to play at Lambeth. Ended up transferring to UTM and finished out playing baseball there, and graduated in '96 with a ag degree in business. My wife went to Union University. She played basketball down there. Her name's Casey. Uh, I've got three kids, 18, 16, and three, all girls. My oldest girl, we were fortunate enough. I feel like my moral compass and my principles are pretty well on track. But if you throw a basketball or a baseball or a football in it, I might get skewed up just a little bit. But we push sports at our house, and I think they're great life lessons. And she's going to be a freshman at the University of Tennessee, playing for the Lady Vols on the basketball team. So we're super excited about that. And my middle daughter, she's following suit. We just got back from Indianapolis this weekend. We hadn't lost a game all summer, and because of the campaign, I've missed lots of ball games with her. And so the one weekend that I probably should have stayed in town and got some things done, we went to Indianapolis and I got to watch her to play. And she's undefeated for this year. She plays with the flight organization out of Murfreesboro. And this was just as exciting as any news I got yesterday. They moved her up to the top team, and she's just a junior, but she's going to be playing with the seniors here in next weekend. So, and then I've got Sloan. She's the darling of the family, and best thing that's ever happened for our family. My kids, they come in from practice or school and go upstairs and then come down for supper and then turn around and go right back. Well, when Sloan come along, now everybody stays a little longer in the living room, a little longer at the kitchen table, and I'm not naive enough to think they're there to see me. So yeah, she's been a blessing to our family. And how I got to this point, Ryan, it was I told my daughter, I said, if you get a chance there on any type of scholarship visits, anything like that, hey, not many times in life a small town kid gets to go and visit nice schools. Texas Tech in Lubbock was the very first one to offer a scholarship. So we flew to Dallas, and they sent a representative there to make sure that we got on the right plane and fed us. So very interesting gentleman, and that's the point I'm making. I've never been in politics. It's never something that this wasn't my plan. And this gentleman that I met there, he's one of the most impactful guys, especially a stranger that I've ever met. And 70 plus years old, just like everybody else in Texas, made his money in the oil business. We talked for 2 hours, and just a very impactful, knowledgeable guy. And before we got on the plane there, he says, now, listen, Texas Tech's not going to approve of me asking you this. This ain't protocol. But he says, I got to know. He says, I feel like I've known you for a little while here. And he says, I know what you are. I know you're a Republican, but are you involved? And I said, no, sir. I said, I've got my issues just like everybody else, but I'm not involved. And he said, let me tell you, you need to look at this from a different angle. He says, I'm 72 years old. He says, all I do now is the charity routes and fill in where I can. But he says, I miss my window. And he says, he says, I see myself in you. And he said that when you get my age, don't look back and regret not serving. I've never looked at it from that angle, but there's no doubt in my mind there might be just a tad bit of maturity on my end, but God put that guy in front of me for a reason. And very impactful. When I told my wife when we got on the plane to go to Lubbock, I said, if I ever get a chance to serve, I said, that guy right there made me look at it from a different angle. And when Andy said that he was getting out, I said, hey, this is why God put that guy in front of me. And it's been a humbling experience.
Well, you mentioned Andy, and I mentioned that Andy's a friend to most of us here. Are you going to be an Andy Holt when you come to Nashville? He's very passionate and known for that.
Hey, no doubt about it. His conservative ink is very fresh and it's solid. And no, my values are the same. I don't see Andy very much. I seen him. Uh, John Stevens had a get together. Well, Monday, and I talked to Andy and I said, "Listen, man," I said, "I'm as conservative as you are. Maybe not as vocal, and but our conservative values they don't smear, and I stand behind it, and those are my convictions."
Well, and Tandy, you may not have thought about this, but when you do come to Nashville, you'll be probably asked what committees you'd like to serve on. Have you thought about that?
I have. I've had other people ask me. We're involved in agriculture here. I work for Aiken Imported Produce. I've been here. Well, I started working here when I was 15 on the docks, and I worked my summers in Georgia while I was in college. And I'm passionate about agriculture. I was raised on a farm, and hey, to get our product from point A to point B, we sell our product to. I'm on the phone with New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis on a daily basis. We load lots of product out of Mexico. We've got our farm in Mexico, lots of product out of California. So transportation is highly regarded in what we do. And so agriculture, transportation, I feel like those might be my strong suits. But hey, we'll get up there and take a look at it. I've had lots of people approach me about other things, and I'm definitely interested about other things.
Well, thank you very much for getting on with us this morning, Tandy. And I think you're unopposed in the general. Is that correct?
No, I've got a mayor in the neighboring town of Dresden, Jeff Washburn. He's on the ticket, running as an independent.
Okay.
So hey, my race is just halfway won, and but hey, it was great to meet you all, and hope to put a name with a face and shake some hands once I get there.
Well, congratulations on the big win last night, and we look forward to seeing you more when you get to the Capitol building.
Hey, fingers crossed. We're hoping lightning strikes, but hey, thank you for the time, for reaching out and giving me the opportunity, and definitely look forward to meeting you all and help pushing 76 to the best that it can be.
No, thank you for joining us this morning, Tandy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Feel free to stay on if you'd like.
Hey, I've got to jump myself, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. I'm going to turn the program over at this point to Mallory Kirby, who's going to talk just a little bit about about some trends, and then we're going to get right into some house races. Obviously, a big night last night in the Tennessee House.
Thank you, Ryan. And before we get into some of the individual House and Senate races, we wanted to just give some general background on the current makeup of the General Assembly and kind of what seats were people really looking at last night that were open or had contested primaries. And so the slide that you see now has just some of the open, well, these are all the open house seats. As we just spoke to Tandy, he took Andy Holt's seat, as you'll see he's in the upper left corner there on your screen. Jim Coley of Shelby County there in the bottom left retired also, as did Speaker Pro Tem Bill Dunn on the right-hand side, far right, and Martin Daniel of Knoxville. So those were the open house seats. For some general makeup of the General Assembly, the 111th, there are currently 73 Republican seats. 13 of those had contested incumbent-involved primaries, which makes up 19% of those seats. 26 Democrats in the House, with 9 contested incumbent, or sorry, that's total, and then 9 contested incumbent-involved primaries, so 35% of those seats. 27 total contested House primaries, with the 6 open seats, all of those currently held by Republicans. And as I mentioned before, a couple of those House open seats are retirements of prominent chairman. Martin Daniel is currently the chairman of the Government Operations Committee. Bill Dunn is Speaker Pro Tem. Andy Holt what is the current agricultural sub-chair as well. So there's very little political shifting expected. I think you will see that in the results for the primary as well as the general later this fall. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen, I won't go into these specific numbers, but you can see there at the bottom that the Democrats held the majority in the House up until '06, where it then changed hands, and we now have a supermajority of Republicans in the House. So I will turn it back over to Lauren, I believe, who's going to take you through and highlight some of the races in the first 50 House districts.
Thanks, Mallory. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Cecil. I'm going to talk about probably 7 big races in through the House districts that we either opened seats or had a surprising upset. First, House District 3 was an open seat. Previous holder was Republican Representative Timothy Hill, who unsuccessfully pursued the open seat in Tennessee's 1st Congressional District, which we'll get to that in a little bit. The race to replace Representative Hill featured Scotty Campbell and Neil Kearney. Campbell defeated Kearney with a 26.5% of the vote. Campbell previously held this seat in the House from 2010 to 2012 after opting not to seek a second term in office. Campbell has 20 years of broadcasting experience and is also a paramedic. During his time as House Rep, he was a member of the Finance, Ways and Means Committee and House Health and Human Resources Committee. Prior to that, Campbell worked for the Speaker of the Tennessee House of Representatives for Republican members of the Tennessee House and Tennessee State Senate. He's going to be unopposed in November. So the next House District 4 is part of Unicoi and Carter counties. That was incumbent Republican Representative John Holsclaw, who won last night with 62.69% of the vote. Holsclaw faced 2 primary challengers, Bob Acuff and Tim Wingerfeld. In his bid for the 4th term in the General Assembly, I lost my place in my notes, I apologize. Representative Holsclaw is chair of the Employee Affairs Subcommittee. He is a jeweler and also has and is also involved in the Chamber of Commerce up in Elizabethton and Irwin. Holsclaw will face Democrat Bobby Harrell in the November general election. Okay, now the next 3 House districts, we had a surprising upset. House District 6, which is part of Washington County, was an upset by primary challenger Tim Hicks. Hicks ran against incumbent Republican Representative Micah Van Huss. He defeated Van Huss by a 15-point lead with 42.47% of the vote. Hicks is a home builder and owner of Hicks Construction and also served on the Washington County Planning Commission. Hicks campaigned on education, workforce development in high schools, and adding broadband access and implementing policies to combat drug addiction. He struggled with drug addiction about 18 years ago and identified it as one of the biggest problems facing the state, and he's a big advocate for faith-based recovery. Hicks will now face Democratic challenger Brad Batt, a small business owner who founded an internet software company, Blue Zebra Sports, in the general election on November 3rd. The next House district is also part of Washington County, which was also an upset. Rebecca Alexander defeated incumbent Republican Representative Matthew Hill. Alexander is a first-time candidate for elected office, as well as a professional storyteller and motivational speaker. Rebecca is a former high school teacher, and her husband own the Dillo Taylor Funeral Home in Jonesboro. She does not face an opponent in the general election. In the next House District 15, part of Knox County, finds incumbent Democratic Representative Rick Staples was in a 3-way primary race with challengers Sam McKenzie and Matthew Park. Sam McKenzie took the win with 39.53% of the vote. a 0.44 point lead against Matthew Park, who received 39.09%. Staples came in third with 21.38% of the vote. McKenzie is a physicist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where he worked for over 30 years. McKenzie served 8 years on the Knox County Commission and also served on the Knoxville Utilities Board for 5 years. McKenzie has also served on the board of the Helen Ross McNabb Center in Knoxville, and he will not have an opponent in the November election. House District 16 is also part of Knox County. This one was an open seat due to the retirement of long-serving Republican Representative Bill Dunn. Michelle Carringer defeated Patty Lou Bounds with 58.18% of the vote. Carringer served on the Knox County Commission representing District 2, which is an office she held since 2016. Carringer will face Elizabeth Rowland, the Democratic nominee, in November. Rowland is a founder of the Tennessee China Network, a nonprofit that connects Tennessee and China for business. Okay, on to the next. House District 18 is part of Knox County. This one was an open seat due to the retirement of Knoxville Representative Martin Daniel. Eddie Manis defeated Gina Oyster in the Republican primary by 50.72% of the vote. Manis is the owner of Prestige Cleaners in Knoxville and has served as the chief operating office for the city of Knoxville under the former Knoxville mayor. Manis also served as chairman of the Knoxville Airport Authority and served as chairman of the Knoxville Zoo. Manis also founded the organization Honor Air, which flies veterans to Washington, D.C. at no cost. Virginia Couch will be the Democratic candidate for the general election in November for this seat. Couch is an attorney at the Trust Company of Tennessee and is also the founder and co-owner of Barkside Lodge, a dog boarding and care center in Lenoir City. The rest of the districts either didn't have a primary opponent or the incumbent won that primary election. So those were the big districts that had kind of either a surprising upset or were open seats. So I think next we're gonna go to the either the middle and east part of Tennessee for Mallory. Right, Ryan, am I in the right part of the agenda?
Nope, you're correct. I think
All right.
Mallory for the second half in West Tennessee.
Great, thanks. So we'll start in House District 52, which covers southeastern Davidson County. Is currently held by Democratic Caucus Chairman Mike Stewart. Representative Stewart did face a challenger in the primary, but he was able to secure that nomination with 59% of the vote. He does face Republican Donna Teese in the general election. In House District 54, which is north central Davidson County, Representative Vincent Dixie was able to secure his nomination with 59% of the vote as well. Moving on to House District 60, East Davidson County, currently held by Representative Darren Jernigan from Old Hickory. He also prevailed in last night's election with 66% of the vote, and he is currently the chairman of the Property and Casualty Subcommittee as well. And all of the races that I've mentioned so far have been Democratic primaries. House District 63, which is Eastern Williamson County, for Representative Glenn Cassida. He did not have a primary opponent, but just wanted to point out this race. As you know, that Representative Cassida is the former Speaker of the House, and he does face challengers both in the Democratic and Party and an independent candidate in the general election as well. House District 71, which is Hardin County, Lewis, Wayne, and part of Lawrence County. Representative David Byrd currently holds that seat, has held that seat for quite a while. He is from Waynesboro. He was able to secure his nomination for the Republican Party by 50% of the vote, 59% of the vote. He had two challengers in that primary as well. District 72, Henderson, Chester, Decatur, and Perry County. Republican Kirk Haston from Lobelville had a challenger, primary challenger, and was able to hold on to that nomination with 69% of the vote. House District 76, Weekly, and part of Obion and Carroll County. This is Representative Andy Holt's seat. As you know, we just talked to Mr. Tandy Darby, who from Greenfield, who won that race last night. He received 38% of the vote, and there were 5 other candidates for that nomination as well. And there is an independent candidate running in that race as well in general. House District 78, which is Cheatham and part of Dixon County, held by Representative Mary Littleton. She did have a primary opponent and was prevailed in that race with 72% of the vote. House District 79, Gibson and part of Carroll County. This is Chairman Curtis Halford. He's currently the chair of the House Agricultural and Natural Resources Full Committee. He's from Dyer and secured his nomination there with 84% of the vote. He does not have an opponent in the general. House District 84, South Central Shelby County, seat held by Joe Towns. He did have a Democratic challenger in the primary, but held on to that nomination with 64% of the vote. He does not have an opponent in the general election. Likewise, House District 85, South Shelby County, Jesse Chisholm was able to keep that nomination for the Democrats at 82% of the vote and also has no opponent in the general. House District 86, West Shelby County, longtime Representative Barbara Cooper did have 3 challengers to that Democratic nomination, and she was victorious there with 68% of the vote. She does have a Republican opponent in the general. House District 88, Central Shelby as well. Larry Miller held on to that seat with 87% of the Democratic vote, and he does not have a challenger in the general. House District 90 this is the seat currently held by Representative John DeBerry. John DeBerry, so this was kind of an interesting situation that I wanted to just kind of touch on because it could be a little confusing if you don't know the history of it. So Representative DeBerry was removed from the ballot, the Democratic ballot, by the Democratic Executive Committee. His status as a bona fide Democrat was challenged, and then the General Assembly, the 111th General Assembly, which was our most recent session, passed a law that would essentially allow him to run as an independent, which is what he is currently on the ballot for in the independent category. So the Democratic nomination was secured by Tori Harris of Memphis, who is currently Director of Human Resources for Shelby County Government. And he received 60% of the vote. I believe he also challenged Representative DeBerry for that same seat in 2018 and did not win. House District 92, which is Marshall and part of Franklin, Lincoln, and Marion County. This was another big upset. Incumbent Rick Tillis lost this nomination for the Republican Party with 39% of the vote. He has served 2 terms so far. And Todd Warner was the winner of this primary with 47% of the vote. He is from Chapel Hill. He's a row crop farmer and has served on the school board and other local government positions as well. And just a little bit of interesting background on this race. To break it kind of down by county, so Franklin County, Representative Tillis did have 61% of the vote there, and Mr. Warner with 32% of the vote. And then so in Lincoln County, Todd Warner had 47% of the vote, Representative Tillis with 44. Marion County, Mr. Warner with 52% of the vote, and Representative Tillis with 44% of the vote. And in Marshall County, Mr. Warner with 46% of the vote and Representative Tillis with 35% of the vote. So That's a little different than the numbers that we saw in 2018 when Representative Tillis ran against former State Representative Billy Spivey, with Franklin County giving Tillis 58% of the vote, Lincoln County with 59% of the vote, Marion with 49.5%, Marshall 59%. So just some interesting stats there on that race. House District 97, East Central Shelby County. This is Jim Coley of Cordova's seat. Representative Coley has recently retired from the legislature, and that seat was won by John Gillespie with 78% of the vote. He is a grant coordinator and is a former assistant campaign manager for former Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell. This one also had, and he is the Republican candidate for the general election. That House district also has had a Democrat primary race last night, which was secured by Gabby Salinas with 59% of the vote. She works for the Department of Chemical Biology at St. Jude, where she also received treatment as a child. And you may recall that she ran back in 2018 for Senate District 31, which is held by Brian Kelsey, and was narrowly defeated by Senator Kelsey in that race. The last two quickly, House District 98, Central Shelby County, that was held, Representative Antonio Parkinson held onto that seat with 89% of the vote. And in House District 99, Northeast Shelby County, Tom Leatherwood of Arlington held onto that Republican nomination as well with 72% and has no challenger in the general election. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ryan, and he will let us know what's up next.
Thanks. Thank you, Mallory. Over in the Senate, it was a lighter lift. Obviously, a lot of action and some unexpected action in certain cases over in the House. I think in the Senate, results were a lot more predictable. The big open seat was down in District 26 with current sitting State Senator Dolores Gresham, chairman of the Senate Education Committee, and a huge race down there with actually for a rural district, a lot of campaign dollars pumped into that. That race was between former State Representative Paige Wally, who served about 10 years in the General Assembly, and former Commissioner of Agriculture Jay Templeton. Jay served under Commissioner Haslam, Governor Haslam originally served under Commissioner Julius Johnson before being named commissioner by Governor Haslam after that. It was a very, very close race. I don't think it was ever really in doubt from the beginning. Last night, former Representative Wally won with 53% of the vote. Commissioner Templeton had 47% of the vote. If you look at that district, there are about 8 counties. Paige Wally won 5 of those 8 counties, and really the one that carried him was Fayette County. That's the most suburban county in that district, and he has some strong ties there. I believe his wife is from Fayette County originally, and he really, really just dominated Fayette County with 74% of the vote there. If you look at the rest of them, it was really a rural suburban kind of divide there. Former Commissioner Templeton did a very, very nice job in the rural counties, specifically McNairy County, his home county. He scored 84% of the vote, which is just a huge crushing number. But unfortunately, he did not. Unfortunately for him, he did not pull that out. Many have speculated this race had 2 very high-quality candidates. I think most of us on this Zoom meeting know both candidates, and both are just very high quality, and both will be great to work with. There is a general election challenger. that Paige Wally will have to face in November. But that is a very, very red district, so not expecting any upsets there. I'm not on that specific district, not going to get into the dollars and cents that were put into that. Just know over 100,000 raised and spent in each, and that race did get very testy the last couple of weeks. Congratulations to Representative Wally, and I look forward to probably working with him in the Senate next year. Looking at some open seats, I'm going to start in East Tennessee. You don't see anything in East Tennessee on this map because there aren't any official formal open seats. We did know that there was a possibility that Senator Crow's district could open up. It won't. He fell just short of a congressional bid last night, coming in second behind Diane Harshbarger in that congressional race. So that seat will remain filled. He'll be up for re-election in 2 years. Up in Senate District 22, that is Senator Bill Powers' district. We know that the Senate Republican caucus did put a lot of resources into this, and Senate leadership also put a lot of resources. His campaign team really did an outstanding job up there, and he pulled out that race fairly easily. He was behind for quite a bit of the race, but did pull ahead. Moving over to 24, that's the seat held by, and as Tandy Darby mentioned earlier, that is the seat held by Senator incumbent John Stevens. Senator Stevens is the chair of the Finance Subcommittee over in the Senate, a very prominent member of that committee, and has done lots of good things. I will note Senator Stevens was a huge advocate and proponent for liability protections in the June session. He's going to continue, we believe, to be a huge proponent in the special session next week. He was a very good attorney voice for the chamber and the business community in June. So a big win for him. He won that race 61% to 39% over Casey Hood, who had previously ran against State Representative Rusty Grills in the prior special election down there. So John, if you look at that race in 24, John Stevens was very consistent. He scored about 60 to 65% across the board, didn't lose any county in that district. I think it's about 6 counties. So very nice job by he and his campaign folks. District 32 is one that we're going to get a close look at later in this call. We're actually going to have Senator Paul Rose joining us for a short discussion about his experience through the campaign. Senator Rose had a very, very good showing last night with 76% of the vote to Scott Throckmorton's 24% of the vote. I think the thing that really pulled Senator Rose was his performance in Tipton County, his home county, where he scored about 90% of the vote, which is just really an overwhelming number. The final one I will mention, and I don't think it was ever really in jeopardy, is Senator Sarah Kyle down in District 30, who had very little trouble last night. She's the Democrat incumbent and wife of former Senator Jim Kyle, now judge in Memphis, a very prominent family. So that's what I have. We will circle back later in this meeting to a little bit about the Senate. Bradley, we will turn it over to you next to talk some about what happened last night at the federal level.
All right. Let me get my video started. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ryan and Mallory and Lauren. And thank all of you for joining us today. Last night, for all of us kind of political junkies, I guess, was an interesting night as we stayed up and watched returns. I'll say overall, primary numbers, and I went back and looked. The last presidential primary was 2016, and overall numbers are kind of showing an interesting trend. Republicans last night showed up to the tune of about 651,000, whereas in 2016 that number was only 518,000. On the Democrat side in 2020, it was 330,000, and in 2016, you can imagine, it was 372,000. So Republican turnout was much higher than a lot of us anticipated, certainly over 2016. So we can also imagine this being a highly contested presidential year, that turnout in Tennessee, like most other states, will be up and way above. So, okay. Sorry. All right. I've been doing my research, and I forgot to turn my video on. So that's a little bit about the Republican. Let's first talk about the U.S. Senate race here in Tennessee. Candidates are vying to replace Senator Lamar Alexander, long-term Tennessee elected official, having been elected governor back in 1979, I believe. Served in the United States Senate since 2006 with distinction. He's been a great ally of the Tennessee Chamber, and just a tip of the hat to Senator Lamar Alexander in his work here. The Republican race started off Bill Hagerty and Manny Sethi, and that's really where the focus of the race was. Hagerty started off as kind of an early favorite, and then a lot of us political types started hearing that Sethi, the race was tightening up in a number of regions, and then we saw more political ads and everything, which would show that. The race was kind of an interesting, two different types of races. Manny Sethi certainly tried more of what we call kind of the Bill Lee campaign of going to areas, spending time there, talking to small groups, engaging with them, and having kind of a really focused on a message of being, very, very positive, kind of not as partisan, and everything. Bill Hagerty ran a very strong campaign from the start. He utilized President Trump's endorsement of him, and I think that probably got him off to an early lead that ended up being difficult for Dr. Sethi to overcome. However, Dr. Sethi did run very, very well. Overall, Bill Hagerty received 53% of the vote, and Sethi was at 46%. We do feel like as the campaign went on, Sethi did probably close the gap quite a bit. When you look at counties won in Tennessee, it's very interesting. Bill Hagerty won all counties except for Cannon, Coffee, Franklin, Hamilton, Houston, Knox, Murray, Moore, Rutherford, and Williamson and Wilson. So that's an interesting set of counties that I think kind of demonstrates the strategy of the Sethi campaign, was to go into more urban areas and try to get higher vote totals, and also some suburban kind of high growth area counties that you see in there, like Rutherford, Williamson, and Wilson. The fact that he won those, as well as Knox and Hamilton, was interesting. The only thing is his margins were not high enough in those counties to kind of overcome all other areas of the state, where Bill Hagerty really, in some counties, got up to about 66% of the total primary vote. For Sethi, the highest that he really ever got to in any of the counties seems to be right around 53% or something like that. So overall, Hagerty won more counties, and he won them at a higher margin, which was just too much for Manny Sethi to overcome. We've engaged with Bill Hagerty on a number, I think, of chamber meetings, and we look forward to working with him over the course. There is a Democrat primary election last night in the United States Senate too, which for all of us politicos was a very interesting outcome. And the winner of that, let me flip my notes here and get everything right. The winner of that is Marquita Bradshaw, which was very surprising to a number of kind of politicos who watched James Mackler, who seemed to be the early favorite to kind of win that. Mackler also ran back in 2016, but pulled out of the Democrat primary to make way for Phil Bredesen to run against Marsha Blackburn, which Marsha Blackburn ultimately, had a significant win over. So it's almost that from the Democrat establishment, Mackler was given the right to run for this seat, and others did not, and kind of backed out early on. I think Senator Andy Burke indicated he would not run. So really, the race there, it was a very interesting race. Whenever you look at the counties all over, almost all candidates or the top 3 candidates ended up winning a whole slew of counties across Tennessee. So that would be Bradshaw. Robin Kimbrough actually came in second in the race, and James Mackler came in third. So there's counties all across the state. What seems to have made the difference for Bradshaw was that she is a native of Memphis, a graduate of the University of Memphis. And in Memphis, she had very strong numbers. Matter of fact, when you look at the urban areas, which really was where most of the Democrat turnout was, Kimbrough won Davidson County by about, she had 35% of the vote. When you look at Hamilton, Bradshaw won there with about 36% of the total vote, and Mackler came in second. Knox County was won by Mackler. He got about 32% of the vote there, but his numbers were really not that high. And then when you look at Shelby County, that really made the difference for Bradshaw. She carried about 45% of the vote there, which equated to about 34,000 votes, and Mackler only gained 12,000 votes in Memphis. So that made a drastic difference. And overall, that race, so Marquita Bradshaw wins. If you do want to learn more about Bradshaw, it's marquitabradshaw.com. You can go there, and she has a website that we looked up. We do expect in the fall there really won't be a whole lot of Bill Haggerty is the odds-on strong favorite to win that. So we'll be engaging with him, and also other candidates, Bradshaw too, and keep that race monitored for you all to watch. Moving now to the congressional side, really all across Tennessee with our 9 congressional districts, there was not a whole lot of activity except for Tennessee Congressional District number 1. And in number 1, retiring Phil Rowe, who's been a very strong ally to the business community since his service, prior announced his retirement. There were a slew of candidates that announced that they would be interested. It ended up being about 15 total candidates. Now, the way the numbers break down is that really the top 3 overall in there ended up gaining most of the votes. And I think early on, Rusty Crowe announced fairly early that he would be a contender for the seat, and started off, seemed to have some very strong support, seemed to be, as you talk to people up there in that district, was probably initially the favorite. But that kind of turned as Diane Harshberger ended up winning last night the seat. Harshbarger took on a very aggressive campaign and worked a number of areas, and she did have, what seemed to have made the difference for her was her win in Sullivan County, which is one of I believe it's the largest county up there, and the numbers that she came away with up there, she carried that with 5,204 votes. Coming in second in that county was Timothy Hill. So overall in that race, the way it finished is Harshbarger wins. I believe Hill overall came in second. I have to look at my numbers, and Crow may have come in third. But that's 12 counties in that district. And overall, when you look at vote totals, they're fairly evenly distributed all through there. Harshberger, the Tennessee Chamber, certainly in our partnership with the Kingsport Chamber, she is well known up there. I believe a pharmacist by trade who's built a business up there. When you look at her position on a number of issues, they are certainly very prone to being business friendly. So we look forward to working with her. Blair Walshingham is the Democrat that won the election last night in District 1, and who will face Harshberger in the November general election. I really won't go through any of the other congressional seats just because there wasn't as much action. Everything is pretty much as expected. Incumbents carried the night. Oftentimes they didn't even have an opponent. So there really wasn't a whole lot of activity except for that District 1. Overall, that kind of covers the federal side of elections, and certainly be glad to answer any questions or anything that y'all would like to know.
Bradley, we do have Senator Paul Rose joining us also after his big win last night. Senator Rose, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Good morning, and thank you for having us. Tell us a little bit about the campaign.
This is my second go around. I was elected in a special election when Senator Norris was appointed to a judgeship. So we came into office March 14th of 19. And as you know, that was the 111th General Assembly was already started. It was probably, from what I understand, maybe the most unusual session in Tennessee history. Obviously, I don't have all the stats on that, but it's certainly new for me, so I didn't know a whole lot of difference, but it has been interesting. And as I did in my first race, Ryan, I had a tremendous team. The underpinning would be my wife and my family, but I also had constituents across the district that really came out strong in the municipal portions of the district, Bartlett, Arlington, Collierville, Lakeland, Eads, and of course all of Tipton County. We did garner a little over 71% of Shelby and 90% of Tipton. So you put those two together, it ended up being a very significant victory. And to the credit of those that worked so hard, we took the election seriously. We knocked on doors and worked the polls and did everything we needed to do to be successful, and appreciate the voters coming out.
No, and we talked back during the June session. We visited and had a good visit, and you were very vigilant about your campaign. I think probably as you should have been. But it turned out 76% of the vote, just a really strong commitment to you from your district. What was it like? And we asked Tandy Darby, a House winner, earlier in this meeting, what were the differences campaigning this year in the age of COVID versus just a couple years ago?
Well, let me tell you, I've been on the call from the get-go. I was having trouble with the link that I had, and I could hear you, but you didn't know that I was here. But so let me tell you, the most significant difference really had nothing to do with COVID. I ran in January, and we announced in October, November, and I was advised by my campaign coordinator that you don't need to try to compete with Santa Claus and New Year's. So we really didn't crank up our election until about January 5th or 6th. And then the primary was January 24th. So we had a really long 3-week, specifically I say that short primary election. The highs were in the 59 degrees, low about 45, typical West Tennessee weather. Those that helped me said, if you are successful and if you run again, you'll be running in August. So the significant difference was we were pounding the pavement with the temperature at 100 degrees. Now, we also knocked on doors. Many people would come to the door. I had one of these door knocking hangers. You can see it's split so you can hang it on the door. Most folks said just leave it on the door. Or they didn't answer the door, but we wanted them to know that we cared enough to be out there. So we knocked on a lot of doors. So that's the biggest difference. Didn't get to engage. And then the last thing, Ryan, would be I really missed the engagement with the chambers, Rotary clubs, those kind of folks that just were not opening up their venues to have us come in and share. So I missed that.
Hey, I know we want to talk about campaigns here, but we would miss a good opportunity if we didn't talk about the special session next week. You are a very big supporter of liability protections for businesses. What do you have anything to mention about kind of next week
Sure.
and getting that done for Tennessee businesses?
Yeah, I'll share a couple of things. And one is, yes, I think it's unfortunate that we didn't get this accomplished back in June, but for reasons beyond my ability to change, it didn't happen. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't get it done, but the good news is we'll get it done next week. I'm confident of that. I think when it really became reality for the constituents were when the schools began to struggle with how they were going to open. It was one thing for businesses to struggle with opening, but man, when you get parents and they can't get a good answer on how schools are going to open because of the liability situation, I think phones were ringing across my district for me and for the superintendents and others. So I think it's important for business. I think it's important for schools, for parents, churches. We just have to get this done. And I think we will. And I think once we do, it's just like in Tipton County, you know, I represent all of Tipton and the eastern edge of Shelby. Shelby mayor weeks ago initiated a mask mandate. Tipton County just did it Tuesday morning, but I think of this week. But I think when we see that liability put in place, we'll see a loosening of that restriction on mask mandate. I'm not saying we don't need to do it, but I think you will see folks easing up on that a little bit because they don't have to worry about the lawsuits that would come.
Now, I'm looking forward to that getting done next week, and of course, seeing you next week, Senator. Also, before we close out, is there anything you'd like to add?
Are you talking to me or to the group?
No, to you.
Oh, as far as asking, I don't know. I don't have any ask right now. I'm just, I'm still,
Or to
I'm enjoying the victories, you know. So right now, I don't really need to ask anything. I got a resounding vote. I am. The plan is in about an hour and a half, I'm going to head toward Tennessee River, and I will be able to be reached, but I'm going to be enjoying the river for about a day and a half, and I've got to be in Nashville Sunday afternoon. But I do look forward to seeing you, Ryan, and your team there, and let me know how I can help you. But look forward to now. Remind you, I do have a general, so I'm not unless I get past the general, it's over for me. But it is a very red district.
Well, best of luck, Senator, and thank you again for joining us this morning. It really means a lot you would do that after a big win last night, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Bradley or Lauren or Mallory, do we have anything else? I haven't seen any questions from the audience.
I don't think so. Thank Senator Rose. Thank you all. Soon to be Representative Darby, thank you all very much for participating with us today. We'll do a similar event after the general election results come in here in Tennessee. And as always, the Tennessee Chamber, we will be out there highly engaged, talking to candidates about a number of issues that are crucial to Tennessee's economic climate. We appreciate all they do to make sure Tennessee is a great state for business, for people who want to start a business, grow a business, and locate a business here. And we know that that's key to our individual and economic success here as a state. We also will monitor, it's a lot of topic about the impacts of COVID kind of on the Tennessee state budget and revenue collections and things like that. I think in the next month or so, we should have a much better idea of where Tennessee is. The legislature and governor's office have already started making a number of changes to kind of soften the impact, and that includes a number of cuts in the state budget. That they've had to make. Also the appropriation of a lot of federal stimulus dollars that have gone out into districts, and small business support, relief, investments in our unemployment trust fund that makes sure that business owners don't get stuck with a massive tax increase as the fund kind of drains down. So we'll be in touch about a number of issues moving forward, and we thank you all for joining us today. and great job to